after news channel after news channel. Ever wonder why they report the same news? This is Wake Up America.
Brought to you by Citizen Stringer.
The media has become absolute lunacy. What makes us different? We just tell the truth. Daily headlines, politics, social issues, focusing on headlines that the mainstream media ignores. Conservative to the core and honest, sometimes to a fault. Unapologetically American. Welcome to Wake Up America with your host, Stephen Oatley.
I don't know if that button was going to switch over, so I did it manually. Welcome to this Friday. I only got a short amount of time because I have to head out to Youngstown in a few minutes. Well, after I go home and then come back here and load up the car and all that stuff. But I wanted to give an update on some of the things that are happening across the United States. Welcome to Wake Up America, right? Where we provide you a little bit of news that you're probably not going to hear elsewhere, or at least we provide you with an actual context to the news that you may hear elsewhere. But you don't understand because it's full of partisan stuff. Now, for anyone just tuning in, I am conservative. I struggle to not cite, to be unbiased. But I try. I try during this show. If you like the unbiased me, watch at night for The Rational American, because that is when it's super unbiased. Anyway, there's a lot of fallout right now over DeSantis's decision. And it's more of DeSantis, not Abbott, although people are criticizing Governor Abbott for busing the migrants into Washington, D.C. yesterday and dropping them off at Kamala Harris's doorstep, our vice president of the United States of America. But there's a lot more criticism for DeSantis, governor of Florida, for chartering a plane, loading the migrants onto the plane. And see, here's the difference. A lot of people on social media channels, Twitter, don't understand that DeSantis chartered these people from Texas and brought them to Martha's Vineyard. I said yesterday I don't really agree with him dropping them in Martha's Vineyard. I personally think it would have been better to drop them in like Boston or something like that, where they have more resources. Martha's Vineyard is an island, so you don't really have as many resources, and it is a lot to overwhelm that town. But I understand it was political. It was a political ploy. That's literally what it was. And nobody is going to pretend that it wasn't. He wasn't just offering free transport, because apparently the people on the ground, although you can't get anything actual, any actual intel of what's happening on the ground unless you go there yourself, but they don't want you anywhere near it. The police in that town, I think it's Edgartown police, yesterday put out, at this time, nothing further is needed. Please do not drop off anything at the shelter, and to keep traffic flowing, don't even go near the police station, because there's just so many. The people of Martha's Vineyard rallied in an effort to show support for these migrants. So food and all that stuff has gone on. I think it's interesting because I posted out on Twitter a few minutes ago, what is the difference between Biden dropping off migrants in Westchester, New York, versus DeSantis dropping off these migrants who are here legally now. Keep in mind, everybody has to understand that. As soon as they get in, as soon as they get processed, they are here legally. They cannot be arrested for being here unless they miss their court dates. That's what a lot of people are confused about. Is they're like, oh, charge DeSantis, charge Abbott with kidnapping and human smuggling and all that stuff, which they cannot be. Even the Border Patrol just released a statement a few minutes ago, which I retweeted, or Border Patrol Union actually just released a statement a few minutes ago. They're calling out the insanity of all this too, saying people are voluntarily getting on buses and planes to go somewhere. They're legally entitled to travel now. They sign waivers. How is it illegal to provide free transportation? Isn't that what the Biden administration is trying to do anyway? Provide all sorts of free stuff to everybody? But apparently right now, for some reason, it really struck the nerve dropping off these illegal migrants in Martha's Vineyard. It has me question, why is there such a huge difference between DeSantis dropping off these migrants in Martha's Vineyard versus Biden dropping them off in Westchester, New York in the dead of the night? It makes you really question that a little bit, because what is the difference truly? One person, probably one of the smartest people I've ever met, and I won't say his name, John, but literally one of the smartest supply chain, executives and reporters that I've ever met in my life, made a statement saying that, well, Biden he's in charge of the federal government. He works with local and state authorities in order to facilitate the transfers, which is completely false. Unless you live under a rock, you understand that most of the small towns and small communities where these migrants were being dropped off for months now, almost over a year, had no knowledge that these migrants were going to be dropped. Instead, what happened is they overwhelmed all the resources of these small towns. These small towns made pleas, including Democrat towns in Texas, made pleas to the federal government saying, hey, we need your support. We need financial support. You can't keep dropping them off here. You can't, because we have no way to solve this issue. So, I mean, saying that Biden has a responsibility and has worked with local authorities. Now, everyone can argue that he has a responsibility to do it to transport these people. And I'll even give you that, John. I'll give you that and say, yes, Biden does have a responsibility. And DeSantis did not have the responsibility of transporting these migrants from Texas because they weren't in there. I don't know why he didn't just take one of the bus loads and say, hey, all you guys that arrived in Miami, who wants to go to Boston? Free airplane, chartered flights here. You can have a Chardonnay on, or something like that. Why he chartered flights from Texas. That's it. That's why you have to admit it was a publicity stunt, but it did what it was intended to do. It was supposed to garnish national attention, and it did just that. In my local news this morning, they did a whole 7 or 8 minute segment on this. And keep in mind, I am in the DC metro area, but a 7 or 8 minute segment on something like this with Martha's Vineyard doing interviews with people, that's a pretty big deal because it's getting the national attention it deserves, which is why they did it. Because for so long, the media has ignored the fact that we have a massive crisis at our southern border. Yes, they talk about it when a dry van is full, chock full of 50 plus dead illegal immigrants who were smuggled across the border and then left for dead, and many of them did die. They talk about that, or they talk about the van loads. There's a video yesterday of a Sprinter van that had 11 illegals in the back of it. In container freight, systems, trains and hoppers and all that stuff where migrants are shoved in on flatbeds. They're built into crates and locked in crates while they're being transported across the southern border. They'll talk about those every now and then. But they're not talking about the small communities across the United States where these buses are coming in at random and dropping off 50, 60 plus people every single time. And these small towns don't have the resources. What is the difference? And that was my point. My point of posting it on social media. What is the difference between Biden doing it and DeSantis or Abbott doing it? Because none of them worked with local authorities to coordinate this. None of them. And so you can make the argument and say, well, listen, if you're critical of Joe Biden for dropping these people off in these communities, then you have to be the same critical of Abbott and and DeSantis and Arizona governor. You have to be the same. You have to hold them to the same account that you would to Joe Biden. Because again, everybody has to remember when Biden has a responsibility. Well, in fact, he's the only one with the responsibility of transporting these people because he's allowing them to break the law and enter into the United States and remain in the United States while they're seeking asylum. And those are the facts. There's nothing else that's going to change about that, unfortunately. And it's sad because right now what you're seeing is this partisan attack. So you got the left and people even on the right that are very in disagreement with transporting these people. Because again, I'm not big on using humans for publicity stunts. I don't really like it. Do I understand why they're doing it? Yes. And is it working? Yes. It's getting people to talk about it. Because if there's enough pressure put on the Biden administration to actually address the crisis at the border, then maybe they will do it. Because right now you have Kamala Harris who's saying the border is secure. You've got Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, saying nobody is walking across the border. When you can go on YouTube every single night and you can watch Anthony Aguero or any of these other people who are at the southern border. In fact, go on Twitter right now and look up Bill, whatever his name is, with Fox News. Eagle Pass, a group of about 100 just walked right into the United States through the border. And they're not going through port of entries or anything like that. No, they're illegally crossing into the United States, committing a crime of which the U.S. government is essentially rewarding them. And I said it last night, and I know a lot of people don't always watch the show or can't catch the shows at the end. So you don't understand. So now you're like, oh, Steve is just some right winger. And I am aligned with the right in conservative values and things like that. But my policy, my view on our border crisis is far more liberal than it is conservative, because I believe, one, you got to build a wall. You got to stop. It's like, I said this yesterday, the best analogy that you can give on the border is if you say you have a leaky faucet, right? Or you got a pipe, like for example, I got a motorhome. The motorhome, I didn't winterize it properly. So the faucet in the kitchen ended up throwing all these ice holes in it as I turned on the water like a moron before the ice melted, and it popped holes all the way up in the faucet. Do you know how you fix it? That's not a really good example because it's a pressurized system, but whatever. But you know how you fix a faucet that leaks, say in a house, right? You don't just take the faucet off and then, because water goes everywhere, right? And that's essentially what's happening now. The water is going everywhere. In order to fix it, you can't look at immigration reform or anything like that until you actually shut the water off and repair that faucet and replace it. Until that water shut off, which is our border and the fact that it's wide open and people are allowed to cross into the United States with very little intervention, you're not going to be able to stop the traffic that's coming across. So, like most rational people, I believe that you need to stop the border. You got to build up the security on the border. And then we definitely have to make a pathway to legalization, not citizenship right away, but a path to, legal entry into the United States far easier than it currently is. But anybody that's like, well, Biden has a responsibility, he worked with local authorities, you are living under a rock because you're not actually paying attention to what's been transpiring over the past year. If you see a difference in between Joe Biden dropping migrants off in southern Florida or Westchester, New York in the dead of night and then lying about it publicly, and that's the best thing is everyone can fact check that. The Biden administration was shipping them to Westchester, New York. And so what is the difference? They're both liberal communities. They're both high net worth communities. Why is it that Martha's Vineyard is getting why is that the thing that turned everybody? Why is so many people paying attention to it? Because Westchester has a higher medium income average of 180,000 versus 157 or 132,657, which Martha's Vineyard does. So people on average make more money in Westchester County, New York. So why wasn't it such a big deal when they were just dropping off plane loads of them, in the dead of the night, not working with local services? Or what about all the Democrat cities in Texas alone that literally went and said, stop bringing people here. We don't have the resources. Remember, they stopped going to the what are they called? Nonprofits. I forgot what the word is. There's a specific word. NGO. There you go. They stopped dropping them at the NGOs because they didn't have any more bed space, and they were dropping them off at gas stations. In full busloads of migrants, dropping them off at gas stations in towns throughout Texas and telling them to distribute them. They were dropping them off in small communities in Florida as well. They captured it on film, and that's the only time the Biden administration stopped doing it, is when they were captured on film and it was featured on the news. That's the only time. So anyone that wants to say, well, there's a huge difference between Abbott doing it and DeSantis, or Abbott doing it and Biden, you're not really paying attention. If anyone has a responsibility of transporting these people who shouldn't be here anyway, but are here now and are legally here, that responsibility should fall on Joe Biden. You know what I mean? And he's not taking the responsibility. In fact, they're just dropping him off at random communities throughout the country and being like, here you go, allowing people to use their arrest records for being arrested for being in the United States as ID to get on planes. This has been going on for a long time. And a lot of people, I think, here's the thing, because you have to be rational about it. You can't just look at this through a partisan lens, because otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing now, is they're just looking at it through a partisan lens. They don't like DeSantis. They don't like Governor Abbott. They don't like Republicans. Or they think the old transporting and dropping people off in the dead of the night is something that's wrong, and I would be inclined to agree with you on that front, because I don't like that idea either. I don't think it's right to just go and randomly drop people off in the middle of the desert or the middle of a city or anything. Right. But what do you do? What do you, as a leader of a state, and everyone's like, well, why DeSantis do that? He has no involvement with the border. That's false, because DeSantis, just like cities across the United States, Florida has received thousands and thousands of these migrant workers. In fact, you can watch any of those videos that I talked about at night and watch when the border, because you know what they do? They ask them. They ask them as they're crossing the border, where are you heading? Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Florida, St. Augustine, Tampa, Orlando. That's what they do, and they ask them where they're going. And all those migrants, they get processed by Border Patrol, they get a bus ticket or a plane ticket, and then they are shipped to Florida. So Florida's governor and government has a responsibility as well to deal with the illegal migrants, just like every other community in America has a responsibility to deal with it. I don't think it was wise to use people as political ploys, but it did what it was supposed to do. It got mainstream media to finally pay attention to what's going on. And I understand that a lot of people don't understand what's been happening because you can't follow it. If you're talking about oil futures all the time, I don't even know if you're watching the show. Hopefully you are. But if you're talking about oil futures all the time in the transportation industry, and you know damn well that nobody's really talking about that crisis that's upcoming as well, how can you be upset at this? Because mainstream media is so focused on not presenting the truth. For example, the supply chain crisis. Stock market's tanking again today. FedEx is down 23 points. You got leading people like Craig Fuller with Freight Waves that's out here and saying, look at the inbound container volume. Look at what's going to happen. We're below 2019 peaks. This is really bad, but nobody pays attention to it. FedEx is apparently, may lay off hundreds of employees. And we're in peak season right now. September, October, even in November, if people aren't making a bunch of money in trucking, holy crap, what's going to happen in February? And you know what I mean? And people don't talk about it. That should be a running headline on CNN. That should be a running headline on Fox News is having people like John that may or may not be watching, having him on national television, talking about all the supply chain issues, talking about how container volume. There's news articles coming out this morning about the output volume out of China right now is so low because there is no demand. People aren't buying anything here, which is going to crush our supply chain. It's insane. It's insane how many people just look at one or selective things. And so you have to understand when you look at it from that perspective, you should understand why DeSantis or Abbott or the governor of Arizona, why they're doing what they're doing, why they're sending these people to these cities in a televised fashion, right? And whether you agree with it on principle or disagree, you have to understand that the reason why they're doing it is because they need to get the public to pay attention to what's happening at the border. Every single month, we would do the border reports. Every single month, we would release a statement from CBP saying how many people have crossed. And every single month, it's just gotten more and more and more. Mainstream media doesn't talk about it. They're all fixated on Trump and how bad of a guy they perceive him to be. And that's continued now, 19, 20 months into the next term. And that's all. We heard it yesterday. How many times did Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, say we're fixing a broken system? If anyone wants to believe that, then that's fine. You're a moron. But if you want to actually look at the numbers, look how many people crossed in 2018 versus how many people crossed in 2021 or 2021. Look at how many people crossed in 2019 to how many crossed in 2020 thus far. All of 2019 didn't even have nearly half as many that have crossed this year. And we're on pace to break last year's record, which broke every other record before ever. So we have a crisis at our border that half of America wants people to address. The other half of America is blinded, and they're not even willing. It's not even that they're not looking at it. It's they're not willing. So as soon as you present it to somebody, they're like, no, it's not that way. It's not that way. But in reality, it is. When you look at those numbers, then you're going to see, okay, now I understand. Mainstream media is not focusing on these numbers, even though they're crucial. They're incredibly important to what's happening in our country. Incredibly important. How else do you get mainstream media to pay attention to? When they're all fixated on Donald Trump, or they're all fixated on talking about this or that, but they're not fixated on talking about America and what's happening here in this country, or small segments of it, Think about the supply chain stuff. We hear supply chain crisis, all the rail shutdowns and all that. Everyone was freaking out about that for a long time, right? It disappeared. You're not going to hear anything about the rail, the supply chain impacts. They may lose $2 billion a day. What do you think is happening? You got Craig Fuller putting up infographics from Freight Waves where he's saying, and let's see what he said here, because this was good. And if you don't follow Craig Fuller and you're interested in transportation and supply, go follow the guy. Full disclosure, I used to work for him. Anyway, but he's still he's got a talent for hiring in geniuses. I don't know why he hired me because I'm not a genius, but he's got a talent for hiring the smartest people I've ever met. Like I was so out of place there when I was there because you got like PhDs and economists, and then you got this guy that makes YouTube videos. Crazy, right? But anyway, he wrote, container freight bound for the U.S. leaving ports of origin have now dropped below summer 2019 levels. It will take a few months before this shows up in U.S. import numbers, but the outlook is very negative. Note, this is supposed to be a peak season. And he's been saying this. Like if you follow him, you see he's talking about a recession quite a lot. And then you got the FedEx yesterday who puts out their numbers, and that's why they're down. What are they down? 22.10% today. So far, UPS is down 3.74, Amazon is down 3, and TXN, I don't even know who that is. But FedEx withdrew its full-year earnings guidance, reported preliminary first quarter results that fell far short of Wall Street estimates, sending shares tumbling and extended trading on Thursday. They lost, I think, 22% yesterday, and they opened, I don't know what they opened at, but they're down 22% now. Global volumes declined as macroeconomic trends significantly worsened later in the quarter, both internationally and in the U.S., said FedEx CEO Raj Sharaman, whatever. They are swiftly addressing these headwinds, but given the speed of which conditions shifted, first quarter results are below our expectations. Now, there's a lot of people that are saying, oh, what are we going to do? How are you going to cut those costs, especially with FedEx? They include reducing flights, temporarily parking aircraft, closing more than 90 FedEx office locations, and deferring hiring plans. If you close 90 FedEx locations, you're going to have massive layoffs within that company. You could reposition some of those assets, but if you're parking aircrafts, you're closing 90 FedEx locations, and you're not hiring anybody else, that has to tell you something. They said they are aggressively accelerating cost reduction efforts and evaluating additional measures to enhance productivity, reduce variable costs, and implement structural cost reduction initiatives. Adjusted gross earnings for the company's fiscal first quarter were $3.44 per share, missing Wall Street's estimate of $5.10. That's a big miss. And revenue of $23.2 billion. Back in June, the company said it expected full-year earnings per share to fall in the range of $22.50 to $24.50. Now, the preliminary result, and this is important, this is according to Yahoo Finance, the preliminary results from FedEx, which is viewed as a bellwether for the global economy, sent shares of UPS, Amazon lower after hours, and they're both down today quite a bit. UPS shares lost more than 5%. Now they're sitting right around 3%. Amazon was down 2%, but now they're at 3% losses today alone. Bolero Corp shares of the bowling operator. That's weird. So their shares jumped 8%, but now they're down 2%. I'm not quite sure why that's even included in this. That's weird. Why are they in it? Because they jumped 8% yesterday, but now they're down 6%. The stock market as a whole, pre-market today was pretty rough. 278 was what it opened at. It was opened down at 278. And now the Dow is currently down 234.48, which is roughly 0.76%. S&P is also down 39.44 or 0.01%. And NASDAQ is down 162.93, which is 1.41%. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I don't know what the total loss is because I don't pay attention to it after I took all my money out because we lost. And my wife, she's everything she's putting into her pension, retirement, whatever, we're just losing. Actually, no, I take that back. We're losing the employer contribution. Like last year, we lost, I don't know what it was. It was like 10 grand or something that we should have had like 20 grand. We lost like 10 grand. Because of her pension and all that stuff that happens when you're a teacher. It's pretty crazy to think about everything like this, and a lot of people don't care. A lot of people just don't know. Let's go on to the next section. I move pretty quick and I try to avoid the chat when I'm doing the Wake Up America show because I believe in just giving you the news. Obviously, there's been a little bit of commentary in this, but whatever. You're gonna have it. I have to update. There are no mass shootings yesterday across America. A couple of false alarms and stuff like that. A couple of people shot. A couple of people, at schools and lockdowns, but no mass shootings, which was good. But I have to update our mass shooting report from September 14th because in addition to the mass shooting in Los Angeles, California, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, there was also a mass shooting that injured 5 people in Miami, Florida. No suspect information available for that. I don't believe. Actually, let me just open it. so we can get the actual, no suspect information. They are still searching. So according to Miami Mayor Kessler Brooks, a spokesperson for the North Miami Police Department said the shooting was near the intersection of 131st Street and 10th Avenue. Again, this is on the 14th. Police officers found 5 adults suffering from varying non-life-threatening injuries to their lower extremities shortly after 11:15 p.m., according to Brooks. 4 individuals were transported to nearby hospitals for treatment, and 1 remained at the scene. It was minor. Police don't have any suspects in custody. No motive is known for the shooting. They are investigating, and they're asking anyone with information to call the Miami-Dade County Crime Stoppers. Now, you may be, and I want to see this just in case this is new for you and you're watching for the first time. One of the things we do every single day when we do this Wake Up America show, which is a fast-paced news, that's all it is we talk about the mass shootings that happen across America. Mainstream media focuses on certain mass shootings. If the victims are white, shooters white, if they're using the AR-15, that's the ones that they cover. They don't cover the majority of mass shootings. We average right about 16 mass shootings a week. We average about 8 deaths and about 3 or 4 dozen injured every single week in America right now, and it's continuing to go up. Last year, I think we had 696 mass shootings, leaving hundreds dead, thousands injured, which is more than we had the year before, more than we had any other year before, and it continues to rise up. I think right now we're sitting around 500 mass shootings. Don't quote me on that. I think it's under 500, like 480 mass shootings so far this year across America. You can only count on one hand how many you've actually heard from in mainstream media, because unlike where they're racist and they go into a supermarket or they shoot up a supermarket in Colorado or a school or something like that, there's a bunch of mass shootings in America that mainstream media doesn't touch. And the majority of them have minority victims. The majority of them have minority shooters. And the reason why we document them is because the minority victims, the victims of these crimes, deserve to have national attention. Now, we're not big and we don't have thousands of people watching us, but we will someday, you mark my words. And when we do, thousands and thousands of people will be able to hear about these victims, the actual victims of these mass shootings every single week. And we will keep doing that because we have to, because that's our job. That's our responsibility. There's a lot of other things happening on Twitter right now. A lot of weird stuff, going on. There was a shooting, I believe, I don't know where it was. There was a shooting in Atlanta where a gunman he robbed the store and then shot the counter worker in the head and killed him, point blank, just injured him. And they did arrest him. The police actually captured him 4 hours later, and he is currently in custody. There's a lot of fallback coming out of this, Illinois with the purge and all that stuff, where they are essentially putting several crimes, including attempted murder, arson, aggravated battery, and a slew of other crimes as no bail crimes. So if you're arrested for those, like including attempted murder, isn't that crazy? Aggravated battery. There's a video surfacing online where a guy in Illinois beat the crap out of someone else, and I counted his punches after the guy was knocked out. After the guy that was assaulting him in the orange shirt, after he knocked him out, he proceeded to punch him 16 times while he was knocked out, and then kicked him in the head one more time. That would have been an aggravated battery charge. He would have been released without having to post up any bail. That's why a lot of people are starting to call it the purge. They're calling what goes into effect in January 1st, even though lawmakers and everybody else are like, law enforcement, officials are like, don't do this. This is bad. Don't do this. But apparently this law has been signed by Pritzker, and it's going to go into effect January 1st. And so many people are going to lose their lives as a direct result of this because it's real. It's not fake. It's real. So apparently, and they're testing it out, and they're likely not going to be the first ones. Some of the other news stories you probably saw on Fox this morning, a woman she came home in Portland, Oregon, right? She came home and she found a homeless person sleeping in her son's room. So the dogs woke up the homeless person as she turned to leave. The homeless person picked up an ottoman, threw it at her, and left. She was later arrested. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, or Multnomah County prosecutor, decided not to press charges against a homeless woman that broke into these people's homes and assaulted them. You've also probably seen this video, and that's one story out of Portland, The big fires that are taking place. Sorry, I keep seeing FedEx and UPS out there, and I don't think I have anything coming, but but that's that. There's big wildfires in Northern California. I think they're saying right now it's up to 68,000 acres, and it's only 2% contained or something like that this morning. I believe there are wildfires as well in Portland and Washington State, which there always are at this time of the year. If you watch our riot coverage that we air every night on Citizen Stringer TV at 9:30 from 2 years ago, we've been talking about all the fires and everything. There's been like 8 U-Hauls just driving by. I have no idea what's going on. Someone's moving in somewhere. But there was also another video that was played on social media, and I believe it was played on Fox News this morning, where they showed 2 people with guns hold up an elderly family. I think it was in Philadelphia, and they robbed them, locked them in the closet. That's just a normal day occurrence in Philly. There's not, unfortunately, you're not really safe. Everybody, if you are legally able to carry, you should carry every single place you go, because you never know what is going to transpire in America. Okay, this show is sponsored by us, puretruthcoffee.com. You may be curious and say, Steve, why are you sponsoring your own show? Well, that's the whole reason why we started our coffee company, to sponsor our own programs to keep us truly independent. But if you go to puretruthcoffee.com, maybe April or whoever's in the chat can do this for me, because I can't. But if you go to puretruthcoffee.com and search Mega Mystery Mug, these things are sick. I've never been so happy about something I've made. These mega mugs are amazing. So what they have is a patriotic design on one side. They have our logo and then a scannable QR code. Now that QR code, there's all different variations of it. You may scan it and it may take you to a hidden page on Pure Truth Coffee where I sing and dance. Probably not. But it may lead you to a free t-shirt or a free bag of coffee, a free coffee box, free mega box. It may give you a permanent discount. So every time when you're drinking your cup of coffee, this is an oversized version of the QR code. But while you're drinking your coffee in the morning, you realize you're out, you scan that little QR code, you get 15% off with the link automatically. You don't even need to do anything else. Plus, anyone who purchases one of these mega mugs right now through October 1st will be entered into our massive Key West giveaway for two-day trip for 2 people to Key West, Florida, hotel and lodging, provided you pay everything else. But yeah, so make sure you go over to that. I am going to be leaving the office here as soon as this is done and uploaded. Well, this is live right now. It's 10:32, but I need to upload it so people can watch it on replay on citizenstringer.tv. But I'm going to be leaving the office, going home, packing some clothes, and heading out to Youngstown, Ohio, where we have the Save America rally. Now, I'm not going into the rally or anything like that. Nope, we're going to give away some coffee outside of the event. We have specialty coffee that we roasted for this event, and meeting viewers and things like that. But we're also just going to try to get some interviews, get some perspectives on some of the current events from the people that are waiting to go into the rally. When the rally does begin, I will jump back in my vehicle and start heading home. So I will be able to spend the time on Sunday with my family, doing all the stuff a husband has to do, like mowing the lawn, painting, whatever she tells me to do, the honey to-do list or whatever kids call it these days. And then Monday, we'll be back into the grind. The first batch of mystery mugs are already set. Those are going out on Monday. I'll be honest, I'm going to be printing hundreds, if not thousands of these mugs next week because, for one, I like doing it. It's kind of cool to see, like, when you print something and it actually shows up on the mug and you're like, man, I designed that. To me, it does something because I'm not artistic at all. But I'll be shipping out a ton of them next week, along with our September mega boxes. They'll go out early next week. Get your orders in now and just keep doing it. If you want to support us on our independent news quest to break the way news is reported and keep us the place where fake news goes to die, visit citizenstringer.com/support, or you can send cash apps directly to me at the $ Freight Broker Live or Venmos at Steve Oatley. I will be doing a show tonight around 8 o'clock from an undisclosed hotel near Youngstown, Ohio. So make sure you stay tuned. That'll be a full episode of Rational American Podcast. And then, we'll be live probably around 12 o'clock tomorrow on all of social media and Citizen Stringer. So we'll see you then.